Hold on one second.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, that works. Hey, we got our first question. I think it's important to answer it. Somebody asked, is it fair to ask both of y'all's relationship status? Absolutely. We're both married.
Yes. And often the pattern is people that are married hang out with other married people. So we're part of an ecosystem of a bunch of other individuals that are married. So there are certain patterns that we see over and over again, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of income, and regardless of where you live.
Hmm.
Okay. Yep. So let's go ahead and get started, Ryan. So one of the places to start is friends. And this is probably the most overlooked step when people are going about trying to get into a relationship is if I can't form healthy basic friendships, how can I really create the ultimate friendship, which is marriage or a long-term relationship? So something that is a question that comes up in a lot of my consultations with people is what are the steps required for someone to be a friend in your life? And so we're going to go through 7 qualities that we believe all friends should have, regardless of whether this is somebody that you are trying to be or someone you're trying to bring into your life. These are the qualities that create strong bonds in other people. Go ahead, next slide. There you go.
So we often ascribe titles to people without really thinking the responsibilities or loyalties that come with them. One of them being the word friend. So these are a very quick list that we can think deep about before we call somebody our friend. Somebody is a good friend if they protect your reputation behind your back. This means that when somebody is bad mouthing you, they actually stand up for you. They don't be quiet. And they may or may not even tell you what happened. They don't sugarcoat things. So just because the truth might hurt your feelings, they say it anyway for your own benefit. This could be that you might be a little bit rude or a little bit careless sometimes, just as an example, might have a short temper. They might tell you, hey, just so you know, some people might not like being around you because you have a short temper, but then they give you constructive criticism and say, here's how you can fix it, or here's exactly what's going on. The third part is also really important. They call you to greatness and discourage you from harm, meaning they're a good influence on you and they enable you to become a better person. It also means they're loyal. They're there for you in the good times when things are easy, things are great, and in the bad times. And we put this photo in from Rocky as a very important example. If you haven't seen it, this guy kind of almost biting his hand with the bat, his name's Paulie. And at the beginning of the movie, he's kind of Rocky's friend. And Rocky has given him the ability to hurt him. And this friend is actually very jealous of his success and signs away the right to attorney away from him to somebody else. And it ends up bringing Rocky into a very difficult financial ruin. So we need to really think about who is actually loyal to us and the power that we're giving them over our life. And just because somebody started out as a friend or has been a friend for the last 10 years doesn't mean that moving forward, because they start becoming a bad friend, that we ignore that. So especially when Rocky was becoming successful and overshadowing the success of Polly, Polly becomes very jealous. So they're for the good times and the bad times. When they give you advice, they give you sincere advice with wisdom and love, meaning it's really for your own benefit, but they're trying to give you the best of what they can offer you from their life experiences in order to help you.
Absolutely.
Sorry, what's up, Terrance?
That's it. The only other thing I would like to add is
Yeah.
we end up with individuals from all around the spectrum, from people that are just 1 or 2 steps away from being in the relationship they want, to people that are already in the relationship they want. They're just, curious and want to look at new perspectives, all the way to individuals that have never had a healthy relationship in 40 years. So that's why we're starting all the way at the bottom of what is a friend? Because if you can notice these seven traits of what is a friend, these are also the seven qualities that a good significant other will have. And I saw a comment earlier. One person asked, "How do you know somebody's talking about you behind your back?" Oh, because it you they people around you know information that you only told them. And gossip has a way of finding out. There's gossip has a way of traveling. And what often happens is with good people and people that try to see the best in others, we excuse that type of behavior.
Mhm.
But people that really care about you and want the best for you don't go around destroying reputations when people aren't watching. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, man. Number six, they're an example of good character. They display qualities that you like to see in yourself and in somebody else. Not only that, but you might even look up to them in certain ways. And last, they genuinely want what is good for you and to the best of their ability, help you attain it. This can mean Terrance, who's not as technologically savvy as I am because we come from two different worlds. If he needs help in something that he's doing and all he needs to do is learn something or ask a question, he might ask me. And to the best of my ability, I'm going to help him easy, whatever he needs. Because if it's good for him, I want to help him in any way that I can. And that extends to many different examples. But if we, like Terrence said, do not understand these seven basic qualities of a friend, then it's very difficult if we don't know how to make solid friends to go to that next step and find solid relationship partners or significant others. Because at the end of the day, the person we're in a committed relationship with is going to be the person closest to us, and we cannot have a deep, solid, and stable connection if we're not even friends with them. So we need to kind of start at that square one and say, who are good friends to me and what makes a good friend?
Absolutely. So once we start realizing what is the I need a good friend, often we're stuck because it seems like the pathway to change our life is so far away. And I think this movie is a good example. I highlighted it in the last presentation, but for different reasons. And it's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Produced by Ben Stiller. This is a remake of an earlier movie. But one of the things we have to look for is, especially if we're not happy with the outcomes we have received, we have to understand the answers we seek lies in the things we're afraid of doing. And I've spent a lot of time around people suffering. That is criminal investigations, that is criminal profiling. I've spent a lot of time in prisons. I've spent a lot of time in hospice situations.
Oh, what the fuck?
And one of the things that comes up all the time, hey, Ryan, can you mute that since we obviously have a troll here? Um, is people regret the things they haven't done. When I talk to individuals, especially individuals that are older in age, they regret not doing more. They regret the connections that they didn't do. They regret opportunities that they didn't take. And that's why this movie is such a good example of deciding to live differently. Especially in 2025, a lot of the professional groups I go to, I would say it's being dominated right now by Gen X and boomers. People doing things that they've never would imagine themselves doing 15 years ago. Going on running groups, creating businesses, all kind of things. And that's why it's so important to decide, what does success individually mean to you? And only you as an individual can decide. So once we decide what success is, then we can lay out all the steps needed to achieve that success. Whether it's creating a business, whether it's getting in better shape, whether it's I want better friends or I want a new relationship. Okay, now we lay out those steps. Then you just walk that path. We make the adjustments as needed, and then we recruit comrades on the way to our goals. And what happens is when we find relationships when we're on the pathway to achieve our goals, what you find is those are often stronger relationships. You can go to the next slide. Now I'm going to give you an example of what not to do. And we use a lot of movies here because movies are easy to visualize. The movie Weapons came out a couple days ago, and it is a perfect example of what happens when people are not on the same page. I'm not going to give away the whole movie because, there's still some people to go see it. It's not a bad movie, but realistically, one of the things you notice with the movie is the parents are not on the same page. The community is at a certain point not on the same page. The basic plot is a bunch of kids go missing in this movie, and the police are unable to find out what happened to the children. And there is no collective group of individuals that have decided they're going to figure out how to solve this mystery. And when we're talking about bringing people in our life and we're talking about relationships, there's few things more important than being on the same page with the people that we say we care about and that we want in our lives. So again, I would say this is a good conversation starter. If you go see that movie, especially if you're in a relationship, go see that movie and it gives you a lot of conversations about what not to do. Next slide.
What can make it really difficult when we're moving forward is actually when we operate from a place of fear. And the way that we kind of did a fun play on this is by using the acronym false experiences appearing real. If you haven't seen the movie Babadook, I suggest it, but for this reason. Early on, there's a book that falls into the hands of this mother and this child. And the book basically says that if you read it, that this demon sort of thing is going to come into your life. You won't be able to get rid of it. And the kid is telling his mom that she should read it. And instead, she lets that voice talk her into something she should know better not to. And it basically leads this demon into their life. And now, not, I don't really want to spoil it too much, but by the end, no, she can't get rid of it, but there's something she can do to control it. And the idea is that if we let that symbolize fear, then we are letting our mind run wild based on an emotional connection to the past. And that past is not necessarily what is happening to us right now. We'll talk about baggage a little bit later, but in essence, we've all gone through stuff in our lives, some more than others, some different than others. But just because we've gone through something in the past and we might be afraid of it happening in the future, doesn't mean we should let our mind run wild about all the possibilities. We should instead focus on the facts in front of us. And that is such a huge and important part in letting us not only heal, but be able to connect to the people and the experiences that are in front of us right now, rather than tying them to scenarios and ideas that we're coming up with in our head. So we should not let fear control us. We should not lead out of fear into new experiences. But if we are fearful, that usually means that there's a lesson from our past that we really need to dig deep and learn. As an example, quick example, um, if I had been cheated on in the past, there might be some pain in there. There might be some patterns I noticed in the other person. There might be a level of control or information that I wish I had that I could see it happening sooner. And now that relationship is gone. I have that pain. I haven't fully healed. And now I'm talking to somebody else who might take things a little bit slower. And now I'm not getting the information that I felt like I needed in the last relationship. I don't have that level of control. And now my mind starts running wild about what if they're cheating? What if they're seeing somebody else on the side? What if I'm not actually the priority? And I can't even focus on the person in front of me and go, how long have we been dating? Maybe a couple of weeks, a month. What is our actual level of commitment? Do I actually need to be worried about that? Is the person in front of me loyal? Have I even started to determine who the person in front of me is? And if we use those grounding techniques, we can start removing the fear that starts to control us.
Absolutely.
Now, with that being said, fear in many parts of our life and our past might have caused us to hesitate to do something that's important. And part of that pain we might feel comes from regrets of the past. And as we get older and feel like we have potentially less time or less resources or more things that we feel like we missed out on, I wanted to point towards the top 5 regrets of people on their deathbed. And they include, I wish I've had the courage to live a life true to myself, not what others expected. Or I wish I hadn't worked so hard or had the courage to express my feelings. Or I wish I'd stayed in touch with, the people close to us, our friends, or let myself be happier. And at the end of the day, what you see in common is I wish I had said and done the things I thought were important instead of brushing them off and letting other things distract me. And that's so important, whether we're talking about fear, whether we're talking about emotional baggage. What is important to us now, and what can we do to obtain what we're looking for now? Earlier on in life, we're encouraged to make a ton of mistakes. We're encouraged to move jobs in our 20s, hopefully find a career by our 30s. We're encouraged to make mistakes with relationships because we're told that we have time or that it's okay. But we all, as we get older, feel the that pressure of I don't want to waste my time anymore. So what are the things that matter to us most right now? And if we come at them from a place of sincerity, being true to ourselves, looking for true connection and community, not superficial connections, having a purpose for why we're searching for a relationship or a significant other and what it will do for our lives. And honestly, if we're being true to ourselves, enjoying it, enjoying with what we can do with the rest of our lives and looking for a true sense of connection and enjoyment with the other person. So let's make sure that if we haven't accomplished what we wanted to and we're not where we want to be, if we feel regretful, one of the best ways to get rid of that regret is to think about what should I have done or did I want to do? How am I going to do it in a way that helps me? But honestly, we've got to do the work and we've got to take those steps.
Mhm. So one thing I want to add to it is, and this comes up a lot, is are we dating intentionally? And what often comes up is the difference between husbands and boyfriends. And it goes the other way as well, like wives or girlfriends. And the way a relationship starts is often the way it's going to end. So if I'm just casually dating, then I'm likely going to receive casual results. When we start dating intentionally, meaning we have set out what are we actually doing? Are we just hanging out or are we saying, hey, we're trying to vet each other for a long-term commitment? Are we holding each other accountable for that? Are we letting each other know this is what my life looks like and this is what I would like my life to look like with another person? And then the relationship is bringing that together. That's the pathway to a long-term relationship. The other way, people are just around each other. And it's like they're having a long first date because 2 or 3 years later, the relationship still looks like the beginning. They're arguing about the same things. They're still having the same fights, even though it's years down the line. Progress has not been made. And progress has not been made because we don't have two people truly holding themselves and each other accountable of keeping the relationship healthy. And a comment that I received personally just now is, what do you do if the person that you're with doesn't want a long-term relationship? Well, if the person you're with doesn't want a long-term relationship, the question I ask is, why are you with that person? People are not rare. People are rare when we hold ourselves to a version of reality that doesn't have to exist. And it's no different than jobs. A lot of us in the past, and so even some of us now, we're not happy with our jobs. So the question is, do we stay there and let more years of our precious life be taken away? Or do we go through the progress to truly build a life we can be proud of? And that's the question. Next slide.
Sorry, I was muted. When we're looking to date intentionally, we need to understand different levels of connection. So just like we were talking earlier about who makes a good friend in our life, that will also be the same way that we connect to a potential partner. We need to understand how to get that connection and what that means. Because if we don't understand, we think that we're making a good, deep connection with somebody, but we're actually not really building the foundations of a relationship and we don't really know who they are. So we split these up into three different levels. Number one, surface level. Surface level connections are usually based on the surface level commonalities. We work at the same job, we play on the same sports team, we go to the same grocery store, we like the same movies. Basically, these are relationships of convenience. Should that commonality stop being common, so does our perceived friendship or connection with that person. So, in order to take it to the next step and get to the personal level, this usually involves a little bit more information about the person and sharing stories. And through stories, we can understand somebody and their past. We can understand a little bit more about the way they think, but also why they do the things that they do. And most often, we don't really share this with casual strangers. And so we're getting to a more personal level, but we're still not at the final part, which is what really builds the foundation of a long-term marriage, commitment, or strong relationship, which is the deep level, getting into the roots of everything. How can we build a deep relationship? So we start with commonalities. We start sharing stories and share common stories, uncommon stories, try and understand the person, be genuinely curious about them. And then to the third step, the deep part is built through shared experiences and character-driven connections, meaning not just what have you done, but why did you do it? But now we're doing things together. We're building our team, our relationship together on the same side, but we are being extremely cognizant of the other person's character as well, because the real foundations of any relationship start with character. Although we've talked many times about many foundations, we need the same end goals, we want the same ethics. At the very end of the day, character is what keeps a relationship alive and helps it grow. So we also need to have shared experiences where we build something together. This could be a physical project, like if you like doing handiwork, right? and you have a bathroom that you need to remodel, and instead of hiring somebody, you do a shared project together where you collaborate. You bring the best ideas from both people and make something that didn't exist before. We want to do a lot of events. We want to share them. And we always want, during this, we have to keep in mind it's not all about us. So while we're picking a partner, while we're looking for what they can bring into our life, at the same time, these shared experiences are only valuable and we only grow them by putting something of ourselves into it. And this, like before, a good friend is somebody who is sincerely invested in you becoming a better person. We need to be sincerely invested in helping the best side of that partner grow. So we should think about through levels 1 and 2, what have we learned about the person? What have we learned about them in our shared experiences? And if they've made it this far and haven't been weeded out, if we know their weaknesses, how do we accommodate for them and help them not be as weak? And then how do we really help them be strong? That type of teamwork is what helps us grow in our relationships and makes us at the deepest level. Because people who are not that close to us, as soon as they see a weakness or something they don't like, it's very easy to walk away. But when we have built a history of standing by somebody, even after seeing the trouble that they've gone through or weaknesses that we've determined we can deal with in the relationship, that is a type of connection that is not gotten rid of on a whim just because it's easy. That's what makes a good, deep connection.
Absolutely. And the only thing I would add to it is this is one of the problems that happens in a lot of modern situations because a lot of our connections are based on very tenuous things. So maybe I have a connection and I have a bunch of friends through my job. But what if I lose my job? Do I lose my entire support system? Something that also happens is we have connections through marriage. We
Mhm.
have connections through certain professional groups. But what happens if I'm no longer part of that? Do I lose the group as well? And this is something that we're finding more and more common because people are not forming deep connections with other individuals. They're not forming true communities. So if I lose a job at Amazon or I lose a job at Target, does that mean all my friends no longer talk to me? And that's why it's so important to find two, three, or four, maybe even one real friend than 20 or 30 people that just casually are around because they're just like the wind. They're here 1 minute, and next thing you know, when the wind blows in a different direction, they're no longer there. And a good example of this is the Forrest Gump movie, is we're hurt, we're healed, and moving forward. I've talked to a lot of individuals that come from, somebody has passed away, or they lost a job, or they come from a domestic violence situation. And one of the most important things when is to not become completely identified with the failures of our past. And the best way to do that is to keep moving forward and doing things, getting active. It's like what people are telling Gen Z all the time. You got to go outside. You got to go outside. That same rule is for us as well. When things aren't working out, then we have to go outside. We have to go through the process of relearning our discernment to be around good individuals. Off the bat, as long as you're in the United States, there's always two places. There's running groups in the morning, and there's events like Toastmasters or other places like that. If somebody's getting up at 5 o'clock to go on a jog and somebody wants to engage in Toastmasters, which is essentially a public speaking group, or anything like that, these are likely individuals that are taking their personal development seriously as well. So those are just two quick ways to start moving forward. And it might be difficult. I have clients that at first they couldn't even they would progress was looking at the Planet Fitness gym. But eventually, if you go there long enough, if you expose yourself to something long enough, you can get the courage to make that step. And that step is so important. Next.
I might make a comment, Terrance.
Okay.
I think you put it extremely well, and a lot of people refer to that as exposure therapy. And I don't really want to get into therapy, but what I wanted to talk about is sometimes, actually most of the time, our self-improvement comes from the place right outside of our comfort zone. We're going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. And we can either run away when we feel that or stay there long enough to know that our discomfort may come from a place of fear. It may not. But when you feel it just long enough, you can gain that confidence to say, now I'm actually comfortable here and I can take the next step. Far too often, even the small changes we may need to make in life make us feel uncomfortable. So we keep hurting ourselves by not addressing it and trying to push it off for the future. So earlier, when we talked about regrets and being true to ourselves, let's not continue to procrastinate or push it off. It's no longer the problem for the Ryan of tomorrow. It's the problem of Ryan today. But what helps me and what can help all of us is when we realize what's going on, stay in that discomfort long enough that we can make that decision to move forward.
Absolutely.
Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the emotional baggage that we might carry and how we can actually use that for good rather than bad. One of the biggest problems that some of us might have is thinking that who would want somebody with my type of emotional baggage or having to accommodate me. And we shoot ourselves in the foot by leading with negativity when we meet people. Everybody's got problems, everyone. But if every employer came to you when you're doing the interview and said, "Oh, we'd love to hire you. Just so you know, our managers suck. Our turnover rate is this amount, and we won't give you the benefits you're looking for, but come here." I think most of us would say no, thank you. But if we looked hard at every job that we've had and that we accepted for a good reason, we found problems everywhere. So we are a culmination of all of our failures and problems, but also our successes. And the emotional baggage we might have, the problems that we've been through don't necessarily define us. So we need to start thinking about, despite what I've been through and despite what I feel, what is the peaceful way forward for me? And when I'm talking to somebody, do I lead with my emotional baggage as an issue, or do I myself focus on what the lesson was to learn? And just like in the fear slide, not to lead with fear and these false experiences coming back as a false sense of reality. If we lead with how our lives are peaceful and how we can bring peace to others, this is a very quick way we can connect with somebody and cultivate a peaceful relationship. And it might be difficult to trust either ourselves or somebody else. So there's a process that we can go through in order to build that trust. And the first thing is understanding when we're in a relationship, we can think about it as, instead of me taking care of myself for just me and the other person taking care of themselves for them, we can say, I want to take care of myself to be the person I need to be so I can serve the relationship in the other person. And now I'm asking the other person to take care of themselves, not just for them, but for me as well. And so now we're switching it, instead of what I can take from you and what you can give to me and vice versa. It's what can we do for ourselves so that we can serve each other and the relationship better. And now we can start looking at what we're calling emotional baggage and weighing us down as a focal point of how it's made me stronger, what I've learned to put back into this relationship out of love, and what can I do to make it more peaceful. And the first part is learning how to trust ourselves. If we can develop a pattern of personal credibility by focusing on things like integrity, intent, capabilities, and results, we're grounding ourselves in what we're doing every day, so that no matter what fear or emotions are in our mind, we're focusing on the real results of what we're doing now. And that helps us get rid of this emotional baggage and focus more on what's good about us and how we're moving forward. The next part and the is relationship trust, is building trust with others using specific behaviors. Like when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, but I am also going to show respect to people and their time by communicating when something is going wrong or I'm not meeting their expectations and why. Like many times, Terrance and I are quite fluid with each other here as business partners. We make plans to get something done at a certain time, and life happens, but we don't just leave each other to wonder what in the world happened. We take it upon ourselves to show respect and say, "Look, man, I'm sorry, this other thing came up. I couldn't meet my commitment to meet with you at 5 today." But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the plan. How about 5:30? Does that work for you? And it's taking that extra step to take accountability. And then I deliver the result. And when we consistently do that with people, this is how we build trust and societal trust. Uh, our community is another huge part that helps us understand who we are and who others are. They can vouch for other people and they can also vouch for us. So, how are we contributing to our community or our industry or at a larger scale, whatever our long-term vision is? And are we doing it through ethics? Are we being transparent and are we contributing? Because these are the things that goes in our reputation, and our reputation is so important. So let's make sure to control the parts that we can control about our reputation through the way we develop self-trust and the way we develop relationships directly with others. So I want everyone here to understand that when we are very careful about fixing just a couple of practices that we have, we're going to notice that with genuine people, our trust is actually built a lot faster than we think. But it only happens when we're intentional and we're consistent. So if anyone has read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, the basic premise of the book is even if you're just 1% better every day, but you do it consistently, in the course of the year, you're already 37% better. So no matter how small it is, as long as we're always looking forward and we're being consistent with it, we will get consistently better results. So the way we move faster in a relationship, instead of thinking we've got to take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to get to know somebody and build that foundation of respect, commitment, loyalty, is that understanding that the way we build trust with people is the speed by which we can get closer to them. So if I've built a history of telling the truth to the best of my ability and telling Terrance, hey man, I'm giving you an answer when you're asking me about, um, how to fix your phone, but I'm going to tell you right now, I've never worked on that type of phone. I don't know. You might want to go ask somebody else. That type of trust has been built up. When Terrance asks me a question, I tell him what it is. For the most part, he can assume that I know what I'm talking about and I'm not leading him astray. And he doesn't have to go through the whole process of researching and trying to double check me. So the small, consistent deposits matter. And the worst thing we can do is expect that the love we give to somebody is going to be given right back to us. We need to be a little realistic in what we're doing. So we need to choose who we're giving that love to and that commitment to. And one of the ways we can do that is understand kind of a little bit about red flags and green flags. How do I start weeding people out? Or what are the signs that I should lean a little bit heavier into my time and commitment to somebody?
You can, in the interest of time, you can skip that one and just go to the next one. All
Sweet.
right, that one's all you.
So, one of the ways that we can look at it, start weeding people out, is through some very simple and visible red flags. And so, we put this in from the show BoJack Horseman because we thought it was funny but highly relevant. And BoJack's being told, you know, it's funny when you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. So, before we get attached to somebody and start getting infatuated to the point where we can't tell what's good and bad and we start making excuses for them, we got to take a step back and start saying, what are the reasons that I'm going to lean further into this or walk away? And the reasons to walk away is a lack of peace or stability. Especially when we get older, we've had the time and the space to understand who we are and what we need. And we definitely don't want to deal with somebody else wrecking our inner peace. I think everyone can understand that. Whether it's a coworker, whether it's we don't want our peace messed up. If we found it, get out of here with the chaos. But we can look at somebody else's life. Do they have their own peace and stability? Do they stand up for who they are and have a clear identity of what brings peace and not chaos? And we can do that also by looking at whether they have a good reason to be single or not. This leads into a history of bad decisions. Somebody may at an older age just be looking for somebody to take care of them and deal with their problems because they never figured out how to deal with their own problems. So if they can convince somebody to commit to them, especially if we're talking about in a legal sense when it comes to marriage, marriage comes with a lot of caveats and consequences as well as rights and responsibilities. So we want to try and weed somebody out who just wants us to take care of them by looking at what have they done in the past and have they had a series of making bad decisions? Do they want complete control? Are they are they willing to accommodate you or does everything have to be exactly perfect the way they want it? Is there even the ability to say, you know what, that's not exactly what I want. Those aren't that's not my favorite type of food. That's not my favorite type of place to go and relax. But you know what? It's okay. The relationship is more important than what I've built you know, my entire life doing one thing the exact way, no matter what. And hidden or missing reasons for relationship. If somebody cannot clearly articulate what their goals are, why they're looking for relationship, and what they want out of it, and we cannot compare that to their actions and see that they match, then we might have somebody who's lost, just hoping they stumble upon something, but they don't even know what they're looking for. But we know what we're looking for. And if we know what we're looking for, somebody who has no idea what they want is not a good part of our equation. These are some very quick ways that we can start looking at somebody and evaluating them and understanding whether it's even worth the time or not. And honestly, um, one of the ways to look at it, the quickest way is, do they even have a sense of peace in their life? I would start there. Now, we talked about red flags, but there are also some really good characteristics that we can look at to give us a sense of, should I spend more time with this person? Perhaps this is not a waste of my time. What are the green flags I can look for?
Exactly. So green flags, one of the reasons I picked this picture is before I went into criminology, I used to study
Well, I
large dangerous
unable to
animals.
hear and see at the same time, so I have opted.
I'm just going to mute all these people. There we go. So one of the things I looked at was what would it take to go to be on like National Geographic Explorer? So what would it take to be a a to study large, dangerous animals in the natural habitat. And when I actually went down that path, I said, oh, wow. So to get the videos that you see on television, you have to get in the water. Sometimes you have to get in the water with a crocodile. And I'm not doing that. I thought I was dedicated, but I realized I was not as dedicated as I thought I was. But if somebody's willing to go to that length, then that lets you know that they're serious about their craft. They're serious about what they're doing. But likewise, in the relationship world, in the profiling world, these are three patterns I notice that comes up a lot. First is true accountability, which is consistent in behavior. So what you want to see is a stable person that keeps showing up. And the reason that this is so important is this is somebody that's a lot more predictable. So before we bring people in our life, we wish we want to find proof that they are accountable for something. I don't care if it's a cat or dog. I want to see proof that this person has a habit and a track record of being on a schedule, being responsible, having discipline, and taking care of someone or something outside of themselves. Next is the prioritization of peace and stability. So, in order to keep a relationship long term, we must have emotional self control and the ability to regulate our emotions instead of reacting. This stops so many potential arguments. Like me and my wife. If I feel the need to lash out, one of the first things I try my best to do is to think this person is not my enemy. This person is not my enemy. This person is not intentionally trying to cause a problem to me in my life. So I have to control that 7-year-old part of my mind that just wants to lash out when I don't get my way. And the ability for someone to do that is so amazing, especially when they have every right to be upset. So the person that they're driving and someone cuts them off, the person that doesn't take it personally, because 9 times out of 10, if somebody's a bad driver, they're not just a bad driver to you, they're a bad driver to everybody. The person that realizes, okay, I'm not going to start a fight over this, is just a jerk on the freeway, and I'm just going to move forward. I'm not going to let strangers impact my life. But the final thing I want to go through, and we're going to cover this in a lot more presentations, is there's a massive difference between somebody that completes 80% of a project and somebody that completes 100% of a project. And if you look at the research, the people that are the most successful, I don't care if you're talking about relationships, business, athletics, these are people that take the time to finish things before they go on to something new. And that is a highly desirable trait if you notice that in someone. That if you're having an argument, they might say, "Hey, let's come back to this later," but they're not going to just act like it never happened. The conversation goes somewhere. They're when they start something, they finish it. If they can do that, that's the same type of behavior you're going to need later on in a relationship when times are tough. Maybe there's a newborn, or in the mature relationships, people get sick, people get hurt. You need to know this person's going to be there next to you, not just when it's good, but also when it's bad. And that discipline is so strong. All right, Ryan, I think we're done.
Wanted to thank everyone for attending. Thank you for your patience. We know you all have had questions. Anything that we have not gotten to has been logged by our moderators, and they'll help us make sure we answer your questions. Thank you for coming on this Wednesday night. And before we stop the recording, Terrance, actually, did you want to go over the announcements before we stop the recording?
Yeah, yep. So
Let's do it.
yeah, so this group has a YouTube, it has a Patreon. A lot of members asked us specifically if we could put something together for mature dating because a lot of people they don't have hope. They don't have hope that after the age of 40, 50, 60s, or 70s that there's someone out there. And what I've seen is there's always time for new beginnings. My mom didn't get into her first real serious relationship after the divorce until she was 71. So there's always hope. Now, the thing is, what are you willing to do? So I sat down with my mom and said, okay, what kind of man do you want? Okay, I know where he's at. This is Michigan. Go to the golf course. She went to the golf course, enjoyed playing golf, actually got really good at it. And to the women out there, if you're looking for a man, if you go to the golf courses, trust me, you'll get their attention, especially if you're halfway decent. But there's so many other techniques out there. So what do we want to do is bring techniques to the relationship world. So with that said, our first relationship book is still scheduled to come out in September. It's for women. However, if we get enough interest, we can make one for men as well. Ryan, I don't see the notes anymore. Oh no.
I apologize. I appreciate just 5 seconds to fix it, and I got you.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, yeah. The other thing that's really interesting, if you want, especially if you want to meet new people right now, especially over the ages of like 45, is pickleball. Pickleball has become so popular with men and women, like
Mhm.
crazy popular. And it's such a great way to meet new people, is just taking part in that. Again, just going outside. So again, we just did the mature dating. The next one we were gonna do is smart love after heartbreak, but my schedule will not allow me to be here on Saturday. I thought I would, but I'm just not gonna be able to be there. So I'm gonna have to reschedule this until probably sometime in September. We have another event for parents. We've had a lot of individuals ask us about raising kids and what we notice. And, that goes back to, I had a whole
Oh,
career
apologies,
in
but what is the
preventive.
name of this group again? Question mark.
Hold on one
What is
second.
the name of?
Hold on one second. I'll get to you in a second as soon as I'm done. But we're gonna have an entire event that talks about, being a parent in 2025. What are some of the apps that target children? What are some of the central figures that if your child's under the age of 17, you should might want to know because they're highly influential? And yeah, that's it. So again, sorry we're not having the event on Saturday or Sunday, but we just got a scheduling conflict, so I'm gonna have to reschedule. All right, Ryan, looks like we can open it up for questions now.